Everybody. Obviously, disappointing loss on Saturday. Appreciate all of our fans being there on a Military Appreciation Day, and thanks to all the servicemen and women that are in our armed forces and protect our country. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. We didn't do our part on the field. Congratulations to Illinois, but now we're looking forward to Purdue, and guys had a great day coming in yesterday, and really good start to the week. So with that, we'll open up for questions.
Two game-winning drives
Yeah.
late in games. What sort of commonalities or similarities or areas to fix do you see
Yeah.
there?
We've also had a lot of times we've stopped people too. You know, I mean, when you go, I look at both sides, right? Because you're gonna look at, we could have had those two, and you look back at the other side, and maybe there's two that we ended and we won with. His team could be 3-6. His team could be 7-2. We look at only the losses that should be wins, and I think that you got to look at it as a whole piece when you're a head football coach. To your comment, you're 100% right. To your question, you're 100% right. Northwestern game and the end of this Illinois game have a lot of similarities. One play, breakdown in communication. Shouldn't happen, can't happen. I got to do a better job coaching it. Simple. I mean, it all falls on me anyway. But you can't have that lack of communication where you think you have a little bit more support inside than you think you do when you don't. Right, and forces you to be a little more aggressive than when you shouldn't be. But again, that's a miscommunication piece, and that falls on the coaching staff.
You talked about situational awareness or knowing the situation and after losses like that.
Right.
Why do you think it's been lacking at times?
We take a lot of pride in the situational football that we educate and teach. You heard me at practice, play the situation, not the play. Every team is very different. They're not all the same. The experience in those situations are not the same. You're developing that. I remember some really good players who weren't very good at that when they started that ended up winning a lot of games because they knew situational football. But we're going to learn from it. This team's all about learning. I mean, they grow and they learn and they grow and they learn. Are they perfect? No. Do they make mistakes? Absolutely. Our coach is perfect? No. But we constantly learn together and grow. I think one of the biggest plays is, and nobody really talks about, is the 2nd and 7 before the 3rd and 4. We run and go get that first down and eliminate it. On a QB pull, we have a chance to go get it or bounce it. Bouncing it in the second quarter or first quarter might be okay, but doing it in that situation, going to get the first down and we're close to downtime at that point. It wouldn't be right in it, but we're closer, and forces them to use their timeouts very differently and forces the clock to continue to run. So again, those are learning moments. Nobody did anything wrong. It's just we got to realize that there's a difference between second quarter play and 4-minute play. And you can coach it, you can teach it, you can say it every day, you can talk about it till your face is blue. But when you go out there's nothing that's a substitute for game reps. Nothing, especially in college athletics. And unfortunately, we made too many of those tiny mistakes, and it cost us a game. But that's not the only thing. I'm just talking in a 4-minute drill as you're talking about. That's one that gets overlooked. I mean, the pop pass, I would never take that. I wouldn't take that back for anything. I mean, it's open, right? That's one to go end the game. In Northwestern, we ran the ball. We had a punt. That's going to go win the game with that catch. And so again, we all live in hindsight. We all live in what didn't work or did work. But when you're making the calls within the game at that moment, that's the exciting piece. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. You hope that it works a heck of a lot more than it doesn't. And but you got to give Illinois a lot of credit, and our guys a lot of credit. They played a heck of a game. That was a heck of a football game. We've lost 2 games that we're sitting here talking about, one in overtime, one by 1 point. And this is I said that we're this close. This year's been this close. This is what I mean. It's those narrow games. But these are the games you really learn from.
What steps did Nathan take toward being more consistent?
I thought he played probably one of his best games. Now, again, same thing, that close. You got to take maybe 1 or 2 throws back. But I thought he was locked into the entire game plan. I thought he had a great week of preparation. And again, I keep seeing growth. I said it the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks in a row. Oh, I'm seeing growth. Leadership, consistency, accuracy, the ability to be in the pocket, take a hit, see the whole field. He's been really good, and he's playing with a lot of confidence. But again, we got to play the entire game, and this has been the whole thing with this team is as we still, to this date, 9 games in, have not played a complete complementary football game yet. We complemented each other at times throughout that game, but it wasn't a full 60 minutes of complementary football that maybe we're used to. Every team is completely different, and it's hard to compare teams to certain other teams. That's why I hate making comparisons when somebody asks me, who does this team remind you of? Well, it's hard because they're very different. You can give it in a wide range of maybe some familiarities, but every team is very different. There's a lot of football left to play. They had a great day of practice yesterday, or a great day of mindset with meetings and everything, and I don't expect anything less. And they're a pretty focused group, and they know that the learning is what matters right now. So,
I've already touched on this, but having watched the film, what was the miscommunication on that last play? What should have happened?
Goes in motion, we check it. We should have been able to get a lot more depth at the boundary or the free safety's position. Should have had maybe a little bit of help from the other safety in that situation with the multiple verticals, and maybe a little bit deeper at the linebacker position to start, and even to carry that inside, because you have it over the top, you have it on the inside, the number 3 vertical, and unfortunately had it underneath. We just didn't have the top on it, and so that's what it comes down to, and that's making sure that we get that communicated from a coaching standpoint, period.
What have you seen in Brev being able to bounce back like he has?
Yeah, that's the hardest part, is not everything's going to be perfect. I know Brevin hasn't maybe had the beginning of the season that he wanted, but boy, I think he's coming on really strong, and that's what Row the Boat's all about. It's not always going to be perfect, but he's kept his oar in the water. He's continued to work incredibly hard. I mean, you don't get to see the time and investment and the unrequired that he does by himself in the film study, on the field after practice, before practice, in the training room. And a lot of people could just quit. A lot of people say, hey, it's just not working out this year. Nope, he forced it to work out. And I think he's really bounced back, had a really good second half of the season, and look forward to his next 3 games as we go forward.
What's the message to the offensive line after struggling at times against Illinois?
Well, I thought we struggled at times, but I thought we also played pretty good football up front. That's the thing. It's just the consistency from the start to the finish. There was a time in the third quarter I didn't think we ran the ball particularly well. Now, again, you got to give Illinois some credit with that too. When 4 came in the game, they went more cover 2, right, and put more safety, more top of their coverage, and were able to do everything they can to stop the run with the front 7. Especially with 4 coming back. And there were times I thought we handled it okay. Sometimes we didn't. Sometimes even at the running back position, I thought we could have been a little bit better. But we're talking pass pro towards the end, everybody pinning their ears back and coming after you when you have to throw it. It's a tough position to be in at times.
What's your overall message to the team with 3 games to go? You still technically got life in the West?
Absolutely. But we're talking about 1-game championship seasons. The only thing, we were 0-1 in the Illinois season, period. We didn't play well enough to win that football game. We've won some close games. We've lost some close games. But I think our team has been incredibly resilient. They're resolved. They're never quit attitude. I mean, that's what came in the doors yesterday. They had a great lift. We had great meetings. It was awesome. I mean, that's why I told you from the beginning, I don't know what this team's records are going to be, but I said they're really fun to coach, because this is probably the hardest working team from top to bottom since I've been here. And that's with all due respect. We have some hardworking teams. But from the start of January all the way to now, this team is just grinded. But that doesn't promise you anything. It gives you a better chance, but it doesn't promise you anything. And they work hard at everything. Their academics. And here he goes, Coach Fleck's talking about their academics. I mean, yeah, I do. They work really hard at that. They work hard at their social life. They work hard at their serving and giving. We talked about what they did on Halloween. I mean, this is a really special football team of a group of young men, and I'm proud to be their coach, win or lose. I mean, that's the hard part. We only look at just the loss, and we jump on the loss. When they win, it's like, okay, that's the expectation, and I appreciate that. Appreciation and expectation kind of go hand in hand, and they have that as well. So, fun team to coach. They came back, bounced back, and looking forward to tomorrow's practice. But
PJ, speaking of academics, Ethan was just named the Lindahl Center Academic Athlete of the Month. You had 59, I think, all Big Ten academic kids last year. Tell me about what goes into helping them succeed in the classroom and how it ties to your culture overall.
Yeah, well, obviously, they're student athletes, period, right? Until somebody tells me they're professionals and we make them professionals, then they will always be student athletes, and student comes first. I'm a huge believer in that. Even when I went to college, I mean, I relied on all the resources I had to be able to have the success in the classroom, and that's what it's all about. School's one thing, but Jackie Lenish, Robert Day, who head up our academic department, all of our tutors, all of our learning specialists, they go into that. But our players attend class, and their expectation is to be in class, and not to just be in class, but be in the first 2 rows. Have your polo on, pay attention, talk to your professor, see him during study hours, our office hours. That's the first avenue to whatever you want to study in your life or whatever you want to become. We can help you with all the resources we have, but your professor probably knows way more in that department than I do, and they're the first avenue. And I want people at the University of Minnesota to say, I don't want them to say, I got a football player in class. I want them to say, I got football players in class, right? And I want them to be proud of that. I've spent some time in our law school. I've spent time in our Carlson School of Management. Those professors work incredibly hard, and that's their Super Bowl. And I want our players to understand that. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Academics are not separate. That is a piece of your life. And while you're doing that, that deserves every bit of your attention. So do we have high expectations academically? Yes. But you get what you emphasize. I believe that in life. And if you make that a priority and you make that an expectation, maybe some people don't. But here, we do. And it's really important to me. It's really important to hopefully their families. And it's really important to them as student athletes. And they'll get that one day. I'm not saying that I loved going to class in college. I think you'd probably say the same thing. At times, I'm not sure. Every single day. There was one stat class I hated. I did not like going to. That was not my jam. And but you went because you knew that you were accountable to something bigger than yourself, not just the team, but to you down the road. And whatever you did now, that was going to catch up later. It was going to catch up to you later, good or bad. So proud of them academically, but that's not why you all showed up, I'm sure, to talk and write in your reports and your articles. So, but thank you for asking that. But I'm sure we'll answer some more football questions too.
Yeah. When it comes to the 2-minute offense, you get the ball with 50 seconds left. Does the tempo come once you have a positive play? Is that kind of how it was built to work?
And once yeah. I mean, you've seen us do it before. I mean, you want to get the first down first. You get the first down, you're moving, right? We just never got off the ground. We were able to, we called timeout. We still had two timeouts. So we just weren't able to get completions. Simple as that. I mean, once the ball's dead, there's no need to hurry. The clock's not moving. So, incomplete passes, it looks like normal offense. But we only needed, when you think about Dragon's leg with the wind, you only needed, 25, I'd say about 35 yards when we started it. So.
When you look at the passing game just the last 2 weeks, it's been efficient and explosive in the first half, and I think you've got 3 completed passes in the last 2 second halves combined. Why do you think it's been such a stark contrast?
That's a great question. I mean, if I had all those answers, you wouldn't ask that question over many, many weeks, right? I don't think it's necessarily one thing. I think it's, if you look at, we've had some drop passes, we've had some incomplete throws, and then you're off schedule, and the next thing you know, you punt, and then you don't get the ball back for a little while. Then maybe you have a lead, and then you're running the ball, working clock. So I think it goes in, just depends on what the game looks like. But it's not just one thing. Unfortunately, if you look at that game, we drop a touchdown, and that changes the course of the game. We fumble a kickoff in the first, and we lost a possession when we were supposed to gain a possession. If we score like we did on our first drive, that's a 14-point swing if we hold them out of that, right? And that's a whole 14-point swing, let alone the touchdown, right? So you can go back and we can say it's one play. It's not. This is very similar to Northwestern, where you go back, it's 12 to 15 plays. You're like, how did that go one way? I mean, I gave you that analogy. It's like it's roulette, and all of a sudden it hits on one color 12 to 15 times in a row, and you're like, it can't keep hitting on that color. And it keeps hitting on that color. So it's one of those things that when you look at it, it's not one thing. I wish it was one thing because you could correct it. But in the second half, we're just not able to finish games right now at times. There have been 2 games that were very similar, the way they played out, that we weren't able to finish. But I know this team's going to learn from that.
What have you and Joe figured out about kind of third down defense? Obviously, Illinois was over 50%. I think for the year it's 45. How do you look at third down defense right now?
Well, again, I told you, every team's different. Every team has strengths. Every team has weaknesses and areas of improvement. What's happening, in my opinion, is it depends on who you play and what those third downs are. But a lot of times those third downs are third and short, and they're getting first downs easily, right? And when they got to get 1 or 2 yards. Beginning of the year is a little bit more third and long. I think we got that kind of situated. There's a 4th and 11, which I kind of tie into third down. I mean, you see that at the end of the game, and I mean, we're that close from getting our hand on it, and we're a slip away from knocking it down. I mean, you're looking at it okay, again, is it coaching? Is it personnel? Is it scheme? You're constantly looking at that. But it's a combination of all of it. And, I think that's where we have to keep getting better as coaches, But we just got to play better. We got to coach better. We got to play better. And we got to keep learning from our past. But a lot of the third down stuff is, in my opinion, why it's where the statistics are is a lot of those things will be third and short, which they're getting at a frequent rate.
Take 1 or 2 more. PJ, where do you feel like Daniel Jackson's grown most this season?
Yeah, I think Daniel's really grown up as a man and as a person, and I think that's what you see on the field. I think that the ability to play every position, do a lot of different things. I think he's really evolved his game. I think last year he was a good receiver. I think this year he's a really great receiver. I think that the best football's ahead of him. He's going to continue to develop. I think Coach Simon's doing a great job of developing him. But I think he fits what we're doing inside our offense really, really well. We've got a really good supporting cast. We just have to be more consistent. That's the number one thing is when you're that close, it pretty much comes down to efficiency and consistency. And right now we haven't been consistent enough. Maybe just around them at times. And if we are, we probably win a few more games, But he's been one of the really bright spots on the offensive side. He's a playmaker. He's strong. I think he understands defenses better than he ever has. There's some things we do with the option game with him. He sees the defense really well. And I think he's played as a really big receiver. He's not the biggest guy when you see him. I mean, he's not 6'4", but he plays really big. He can play really small when he needs to. He's lightning quick and explosive. And I think he's just become a smarter player. And we have a saying, smarter players are usually better players because they just understand the why to everything that's happening. And I think that's where he's made the biggest jump.
You mentioned after the game the drop that could have led to a touchdown, in the end zone in the later second half. How do you express that the ball is the program narrative to the wide receivers and the pass catchers as well?
How do we?
Yeah.
Like what do we do? Or
how important is it for them? Do they know that it's that is the standard?
Well, I don't know if you can say anything else besides the ball is the program. Have it written all over the team meeting in the indoor, saying it about 1,000 times in practice, doing program ball drills, doing 78% program ball drills, doing poise program ball drills. But again, you look across the entire country. I mean, not everybody catches every single ball. Not every quarterback's 100%. There's throws, there's incompletions, there's drops. It's part of the game. Is it acceptable? No. But he's also made huge catches for us. He's made some huge catches for us. But again, this year has just been, it's just the consistency. There's times we have it, there's times we don't have it. And that's what when you're calling the game and you're managing the game, you've seen what we can do and what we can't do, and it's a mix of it, and it's inconsistent. It's harder and harder to call it of what you want because it's not a staple of, I know 100% what I'm going to get right here. And I think that's the consistency that we have to close that gap on in the final 3 games of the identity of this. But going into the year, when you lose, everybody in this room would probably understand how what Mohamed Ibrahim can do, what he has done. There's time, consistency, and proof building that trust of that person. Well, when you have other guys at certain positions that are new starters in those positions, what can they do? What can't they do? What will they do in that moment when maybe you haven't seen it yet, right? Or seen them consistently enough in that setting. So that's where the full trust goes. And the trust has happened for us in a positive way, and the trust has happened where we haven't been able to get it done. But that's just the consistency piece of this as we keep going forward. So I know our guys will continue to respond. and don't expect anything less. They have a great attitude, and we'll do everything we can to be 1-0 against Purdue. I mean, it's really early. I mean, being 10 a.m. on Monday, but we spent a lot of time on them last night. On offense, they've got explosive playmakers. I mean, number 4 can really run. They do everything they can to get him a ball. Kind of reminds you of number 1 on offense of Illinois. They do a lot of different things to get him the football, getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands very quickly. Whether it's deep passes, whether it's screens, they want to establish a run game. They've got really good running backs. Quarterbacks, he's a thrower now. He's accurate, and he throws it all over the place. But they establish a run game more than probably they have in the past. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they're outside backers, whether you want to call them ends or backers, however you look at that. They're 2 outside backers or guys that are up towards the top in the Big Ten in tackles and sacks, very aggressive internally. They've got some young players in the secondary that are really, really playing at a high level, that are very good players. Some of the players we recruited. But again, they've been in some close games as well. So, we know we got to travel to Purdue, and it's going to be a tough matchup, that's for sure. So I'd like to be able to get into even more depth. We just haven't watched enough of it right now. But very similar style defenses of what you saw last week to this week, just because of Ryan Walters being the head coach and being the coordinator in Illinois and them keeping that similar system. It's not the same, but there's some similarities to it. So there's some things that might be some carryover. A lot of it's going to have to change, but some carryover as well. Appreciate it, everybody. Row the boat, Sky Mago Gophers. Thanks.